Hello, this is Dr. Grande. Today's question is, can I analyze the case of Lindsay Shiver? Just a reminder, I'm not diagnosing anybody in this video, only speculating about what could be happening in a situation like this. If you enjoyed this video, please like it, subscribe to my channel, and consider supporting me on Patreon. I will put the link to Patreon in the description for this video. First, I'll look at the background of this case, including the timeline of the alleged crime, then offer my analysis. In 2023, 36-year-old Lindsay Shirley Shiver was a resident of Thomasville, Georgia. This town is about an hour north of Tallahassee, Florida. When she was younger, she was a pageant queen, specifically Miss Houston County 2005. That same year, she was also the second runner-up in the National Peanut Festival pageant. Lindsay had been a cheerleader who attended Auburn University. This is where she met a football player named Robert Shiver in 2007. They were in a fitness class together. Lindsay graduated in 2009 with a degree in marketing. Robert was briefly with the Atlanta Falcons football team, but he was cut before the 2009 season started. That same year, Robert took a job with a life insurance company in Thomasville. At some point, he became an executive vice president. It appeared as though Robert was from a wealthy family. Starting in 2013, his father, Alan, served as the president and CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company called Flower Foods. In 2017, Alan had an estimated net worth of at least $23 million. Robert and Lindsay married on March 6, 2010. They would go on to have 3 sons, one in March 2012, one in April 2013, and one in February 2019. The family lived in an 8,000 square foot, 7-bedroom mansion in Thomasville, Georgia. The home is valued at $2.5 million. The Shiver family had a second home on the island of Abaco in the Bahamas. They would make frequent trips there on a private jet. Based on various social media posts, Lindsay appeared to be living an ideal life and enjoying paradise. She described the Bahamas as her happy place. In June 2022, she posted a message on Instagram suggesting that she was, quote, the real Bahama mama, unquote. In September 2022, she was the winner of a golf cart decorating contest. It appears as though Lindsay may have allowed herself to get a little bit too happy in paradise. She had an affair with a 28-year-old Bahamian national named Terrence Adrian Bethel. He was a bartender. Not surprisingly, her husband Robert was not too happy about this. On April 5, he filed for divorce, citing his wife's infidelity. He accused her of engaging in, quote, adulterous conduct, unquote. Robert argued that his wife was not entitled to alimony because she had the ability to work. He wanted primary physical custody of their 3 sons, the mansion, and all the furnishings. Robert was also looking for a restraining order against his wife. Lindsay had her own version of events and her own demands. She accused Robert of physical and mental cruel treatment, claiming that he hit her in front of their children. As far as the affair, Lindsay had an explanation for that as well. Her filing indicated that, quote, any extramarital relationship she had was during the parties' separation and legally condoned by the husband, unquote. Lindsay claimed that she felt unsafe in her marital home and installed locks on the interior doors. There appeared to be some concerns about money. Lindsay claimed that Robert punished her financially and cut her off from funds that she would typically use to run the household. She accused Robert of using the children to harm her. For example, allegedly, he did not allow the children to communicate with her and took them from her for an extended period of time. He only returned them to the marital residence after law enforcement officials became involved. In February and April 2023, Robert and Lindsay contacted the police a few times. On April 30, Robert called the police and said his wife had gone off the rails and was tailgating his mother's vehicle to try to get the children. Robert said, quote, she threatened myself and my mother to bring the kids back, and her mom is saying to take her to the ER or check her into some mental institution because they think she's having kind of a midlife crisis, mental breakdown, unquote. On July 16, 2023, the police responded to the Shiver mansion. They had a conversation with Robert and Lindsay as they were all standing on the driveway and in the garage. Lindsay accused Robert of shoving her as they were arguing about Lindsay wanting to ride on the private jet to the Bahamas. Robert denied shoving Lindsay. The police explained to Lindsay that it was her word against Robert's, and they were unable to take any action. On the same day, July 16, police in the Bahamas were embarking on a separate adventure that would become relevant to this case. They were investigating a crime that was unrelated to Lindsay. An establishment named Grabber's Bed, Bar, and Grill had been burglarized. The police thought that it could have been an inside job and started investigating people who worked there. Lindsay's lover, Terrence Bethel, was one of the employees. When the police searched his phone, they found WhatsApp messages that contained a detailed plan to murder Robert Shiver. Lindsay allegedly conspired with Terrence and a 29-year-old Bahamas national named Farron Newbold Jr. Farron is the son of a local politician and worked as an engineer for a power company. Lindsay sent a message to both Terrence and Farron containing a photograph of her husband, Robert, along with the message, quote, "Kill him," unquote. 5 days later, on July 21, the three alleged conspirators, Lindsay, Terrence, and Farron, were arrested in the Bahamas. On August 9, Lindsay was released on $100,000 bail. She cannot leave the Bahamas and has been ordered to report to a local police station 3 times a week. She must remain in her residence from 8 p.m. to 6 a.m. I don't know if Lindsay attempted to murder her husband or not, but she definitely murdered her social life. Lindsay is due back in court in October 2023. She is facing up to 60 years in prison if convicted. Now moving to my analysis. Here are my thoughts in a few areas that stood out to me in this case. Item number 1. Lindsay admitted to sending the message to Terrence and Farron, but said that she wasn't serious about having Robert killed. She was just venting about a bad divorce. Terrence claimed that he was not the reason that Lindsay's marriage ended. Referring to Lindsay, he said, quote, "I love her. Everybody knows we are together. We are not hiding anything. She's a great mother. I have too much respect for her and her children to want to hurt their father," unquote. Farron argued for his innocence as well. He said, quote, "Once everything is revealed, you will understand why we aren't saying anything right now. There is more that is going to come out," unquote. Reportedly, Robert hired a private investigator to follow Lindsay in the Bahamas before all this happened. This seems to contradict the idea that her affair was in plain view. This brings me to item number 2. Lindsay was described by a friend as a firecracker who was bored for a long time. Social media posts made by the Shivers over the course of years suggested that the couple was happy. There were numerous posts that represented their relationship as loving and ideal. In 2020, Lindsay posted on Instagram saying, quote, "The key to a perfect marriage is having 2 imperfect people who refuse to give up on each other," unquote. Some of the posts were made not that long before the couple's relationship became tumultuous. This supports the theory that something suddenly went wrong in the marriage, rather than some type of gradual failure. Infidelity is one of those behaviors that, at least from the perspective of the offended party, occurs suddenly. Like when the offended party finds out, they find out all at once. There's nothing gradual about an affair from their perspective. This often leads to the offended party filing for divorce quickly, as they are overcome with feelings of betrayal and do not see any way to repair the relationship. Many people who engage in affairs tell those around them that the infidelity was no secret. This is a way of escaping blame, but in many cases, the unfaithful person is being deceptive about those claims. They are simply trying to conceal their own destructive behavior. Item number 3. Do I believe that Lindsay and her conspirators are guilty of conspiracy to commit murder? The officials in the Bahamas have not really released much information about the charges. There are media reports that suggest that Lindsay paid Farron and that a detailed description of how to kill Robert was provided. But there are no official court documents indicating that, at least not that have been made public. Lindsay admitted to sending the WhatsApp message. This, of course, hurt her case. The photograph of Robert combined with the words, "kill him," made it seem as though she wanted the men to know what Robert looked like in order to murder him. The law in the Bahamas allows the government to prosecute a conspiracy case if there is an agreement or an act in furtherance of a common criminal purpose. In most jurisdictions in the United States, the law is a little bit different. It requires both an agreement and an act in furtherance of a common criminal purpose. This means that it's easier to prosecute conspiracy in the Bahamas, but the government still needs to prove there was an agreement. I would be curious to see how they're going to do this. What evidence do they have that Lindsay, Terrence, and Farron actually agreed to participate in a murder? Without knowing the evidence, it's difficult to form a theory about Lindsay's possible involvement. She was in a bitter divorce battle with her husband, and there was a lot at stake. It's conceivable that she sent the message in a moment of private jet rejection-fueled anger and did not really want anyone to be killed. It's not unusual for someone having an affair to commiserate with their affair partner. Maybe she was just using a figure of speech when she said the words, "kill him." I find it curious that the police in the Bahamas stumbled upon this case when they seized a cell phone for an unrelated crime. They gained access to private communication that may have otherwise remained private. Maybe nothing would have happened if they had not made this discovery. Based on the little evidence which is available so far, I'm not convinced beyond a reasonable doubt that anyone intended on committing murder, but there is no doubt that Lindsay made an extremely unwise move by sending an incriminating message. Item number 4. Outside of the guilt or innocence, what do I think happened in this case? This is just a theory, my opinion. When a married individual is having an affair, it creates a massive disparity between their experience and the experience of the offended spouse. After finding a lover in the Bahamas, Lindsay may have been in a state of euphoria. Everything appeared to be going her way. She had romance, support, someone to whom she could complain. She was energized, excited, and no longer bored. Robert's experience was probably much different. He was taken by surprise and hurt by a massive betrayal. Not surprisingly, Lindsay and Robert entered into a contentious dispute. They were each accusing each other of being the bad guy and were essentially gridlocked. Nothing was going to move until the court intervened. Whether Lindsay intended to kill Robert or not, she sent a message that made it seem as though she wanted him dead. In doing so, she broke the gridlock and gave Robert a massive advantage. He has custody of his sons and is probably in a good position to walk away with a large proportion of the marital assets, mostly because of the attempted murder part. Sometimes when people are in a bitter dispute, one party will take things too far and get in trouble. That's what happened with Lindsay in this case, regardless of her guilt or innocence. Now moving to my final thoughts. If Lindsay ends up receiving a prison sentence in the Bahamas, she will be in Fox Hill Prison. This is the only prison in the Bahamas. It's in Nassau. The facility only has one block for female prisoners and is notorious for violating human rights. Human beings usually do not enjoy the prison, but it is considered a rodent paradise. I imagine a welcome sign that reads, "Thank you for joining us at Fox Hill, where we strive to be the hill that you're going to die on." A magical Fox Hill vacation will probably represent a decrease in Lindsay's quality of life. For example, it is notoriously difficult in that prison to reserve a private jet during peak demand times. Lindsay may have to stay busy making the most of her golf cart decorating talents. Those are my thoughts on the case of Lindsay Shiver. Please put any opinions and thoughts in the comment section. They always generate an interesting dialogue. As always, I hope you found my analysis of this topic to be informative. Thanks for watching.